Oil is cheaper today than the day before the Iran war started. The war didn't go as planned, but realistically, it still went good enough. And the US came out with surprisingly little to lose. The US got a little greedy here. The plan was asymmetric warfare, choke off Iran and China through Hormuz, betting the US could survive the supply shock better than they could, bleed Iran financially, force a straight back on American terms, and cut off the discounted oil flowing to China. The issue was, the IRGC was never going to be measurably removed from the strait. You can degrade Iran's navy and arm plants, which the US did, and still not touch the choke point denial capability. Iran's seaboard exports took a heavy hit. Strait flows collapsed, and their volumes dropped sharply into the low hundreds of thousands of barrels per day during peak disruption. But the shadow fleet kept the floor under the exports. Wartime prices of $110 to $138 per barrel helped, and production capacity at 3.2 to 3.3 million barrels per day stayed largely intact. Full insolvency was never in reach during the available timeline. In the meantime, prolonged closure threatened to cost the US and allies more than it cost China. China had spent months stockpiling a record cushion to ride this exact scenario out, while the US was draining its own strategic reserve to a 43-year low, swallowing $5 gas, and watching the price spike it engineered hand Russia a windfall on every barrel it sold. But while everyone watched Hormuz, the US quietly locked the allies onto American energy for the next 2 decades. Japan signed 27-year and 20-year natural gas deals and bought up American gas on long-term contracts while Qatar sat offline. India flipped. The US is now its top gas supplier, sending it 5 times the Gulf's volume. And then the rival's own suppliers got pulled into the US orbit. Venezuela's been cut off from China for 5 straight months, while America became its #1 customer. And OPEC started cracking from the inside. The UAE walked out in May. Saudi Arabia blew through its own quota. And now Iraq, a founding member, is threatening to leave too, so it can pump more. Put it together, and the US comes out of this as the one country that can turn the taps up or down. The swing producer, the natural gas hub, the energy center of gravity. They went in to bleed Iran. They came out running the dial. Not the war they planned, but not a bad place to land.